Good afternoon and welcome to the Day After Podcast and our sub-show Pixar Sunday, where we are chugging every Pixar film ever made. Where today is part 6, where we are tackling 2004's The Incredibles, directed by Brad Bird, fresh off of his role directing The Iron Giant.
My heart, John. My heart.
Your heart?
My heart.
Okay.
So I told John this as we started watching this film. I'm not entirely certain when I acquired this DVD. I don't know if it was for my birthday or for Christmas of 2005. I watched this movie every single day for like 2 weeks.
I've been fighting with this guy the last couple episodes. Somebody on some website, I want to find him because I want to give him credit, said your favorite Pixar movie came out between the ages of 8 and 12. This came out the day before my 13th birthday. And
yep.
God damn, it's wonderful.
It's so good, and it's so weird because of the special circumstances of my life, but this movie came out when probably the most pivotal moment of my young adult life, which I won't go into, but it is so good. It is so solid. All of the characters work together in just a great fashion. And we learned how to do people, John.
Okay. Part of the reason, and I don't want to do this, part of the reason people didn't like Cars, among other things, is because, oh great, they know how to do people, finally. What are we going to do? Cars. Shit! And what I mean by that is that before The Incredibles, and maybe going to and through Cars, maybe, Pixar had this joke trope where they said, like, what if insects had feelings? What if monsters had feelings? Fish had feelings? All the way through. It was just take a story and then skin it on top of different types of creatures.
And so we said this during watching, and you can analyze the truth value of this statement for yourselves, audience. This may be the most adult Pixar film, if not ever, then definitely thus far.
Well, you have been, not shouting, but you've been saying that Pixar is made for kids starring adults.
Yes, yeah, they're adult characters going through situations that kids understand. To me, The Incredibles pushes those boundaries almost to their apex. And I think it still works. It still works with the formula that I had set up. But these characters deal with cheating. They deal with financial struggles of a new family. They deal with like kid struggles, like how do I relate to my kid? How do I parent my child, especially when this child is gifted in certain ways? Mm-hmm. It has really, really adult themes in a way that these other films just don't quite hit, which is weird because Monsters, Inc. takes place in a factory.
Which is extremely adult.
Right, but it's treated so kiddily in a way that The Incredibles is not. You get that kid lens with Dash and Violet, but the themes throughout are adult, and they're treated as if kids can understand them.
So this will eventually become a core Incredibles podcast, but I feel like that's kind of what, for us, let Monsters, Inc. down, is because it was featuring adults, but that was it.
Yeah, that was kind of it. It had a kid focus, but that kid was a toddler, and it didn't offer a very good connection because, like, Boo was never the focus. Like in this movie, the parents are the focus, but so are the kids, and so is the villain, and so is the external characters, and so are the weird side characters like Wallace Shawn and Samuel L. Jackson. That normally in any other movie, in like Monsters, Inc., you would write those characters off. And this one, they're very core and central, and you remember them and you quote them constantly.
Holy shit! This is when I knew we had something on our hands. This is a 116-minute movie, give or take 3 minutes.
The longest Pixar film yet, right? Of the 6.
Until of the 6 so far, it was taken down by The Incredibles 2.
Okay.
It was a 2-hour movie. We spent 2.5 hours watching because we couldn't stop talking.
Well, and part of that is our personal experience. Again, we were 12 and 13 when this came out, and you have such a different connection when you're a preteen watching films than when you're a child.
Definitely. I want to segue if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Pixar loves to do this, and it's not become a cliche yet, but this is the first one to do it, and I think do it fantastically. They love going back to this vague retro-futurist style, which is an idea of applying the ideas of future navel gazing to the modern metro area.
And I get your idea. I get that argument. And if that's what the director's intended, whatever. But I also feel like The Incredibles is constantly harkening back to that great period time of the 60s and 70s where comic books and comic book superheroes were on the all-time high. And every other reviewer has said this, so I'm only going to say this once. Please keep in mind that when The Incredibles came out, Marvel Cinematic Universe did not exist.
Absolutely not.
The superhero thing had not been done to hell, and so this was still a new, exciting, and cool thing to harken back to this great golden age of superheroes. And yet, it doesn't go the superhero route. It goes the weird noir spy route, which is also kind of neat, but a weird way to take the film, but in a way that totally, totally works.
Brad Bird, the very, very prenatal idea for The Incredibles came when he just drew a family in 1993. He was in the early to mid stages of directing The Iron Giant, and he was at a place in his career where he was unsure where to go, and he felt like, what do I do next? And he drew this family, and he wondered what would they do in a universe, I guess.
And this idea of the superhero family, it's one that's easy to understand. This is not a high concept movie. This is not trying to fucking bust your balls with how weird and outrospective can we make this film. But it simply stars a superhero family that is stressed. They have extraordinary superpowers, and they deal with everyday life in an extraordinary way.
I love the very restrained world building, and what I mean is not lackluster, but when they have this very extended first scene where they're doing things, and it results in the banning of supers in their universe. And you if you were a little more nitpicky, you would want more details. But it's okay, supers are banned. Let's move on to the implications.
Yes, this movie is great at giving you just enough information. I love, by the way, the weird nitpicky thing, I will say, and not nitpicky, I'm applauding it for this. That entire sequence is shot in 4:3.
You mean
when they're being filmed and they have the little microphone, and when they're getting interviewed, that entire thing is in 4:3, and then it suddenly goes into this beautiful widescreen.
That slays me. I think that, by the way, spoiler alert, this is our favorite of the first 6.
Yeah, I mean,
it pretty
that's
much tops Toy Story 2. We apologize.
not that any of those other movies are bad. It's just this movie, you can absolutely tell, even without reading the stupid Wikipedia article, of how much Brad Bird and his team really, really loved this film.
It was shocking because I feel like Brad Bird did not expect to be brought on to do The Incredibles. They said, come do a movie for us. And he's like, okay, I need a team. And so he hired most of the animators for The Iron Giant to come on. But the animators for The Iron Giant were used to a 2D cell animation style. So they brought them on, and originally it was a fish out of water story. They're like, I'm not comfortable. And then after a while, they're like, CGI can do so much more.
Yeah. And you really respect the strides in technology that The Incredibles takes over the other Pixar films, and even over any film that has come before it. When Bob is tired and sitting in his insurance office, you see the wrinkles in his eyes. You see the bags in his eyes. The old lady, you see every wrinkle in her face. You see Bob's boss, played by Wallace Shawn. You see the clear lines of his face. And this is more pronounced in later Pixar films when they almost over-stylize the animation. This is a great depiction of a cartoon world played realistically, but still stylized in a way that is good and familiar.
And especially, I hate to just fillet the set design of his very cubicle job.
Well, that speaks to you. You played a job like that.
It's not to be that way, but I'm reminded of, we'll talk about Coco later, but when they did Coco, they're like, we want the death, the world of the dead is so vibrant, we have to mute the real world.
Mm-hmm.
When we go eventually do spy stuff, it's so vibrant and cool.
Right, and you definitely see the spy influences on this movie. A lot of the action scenes. When I was a kid, they kind of dragged, and when I'm an adult, they still kind of drag, though I appreciate them more. When Incredible and Elastigirl are kind of going through the pods, infiltrating this big, huge secret base of these cool robots and whatever, and infiltrating the guards, you definitely see this movie's spy influences.
And if one thing, and I'm going somewhere, I promise. If one thing has tainted Toy Story 3 a little bit, is that too much of the plot is taken up by that escape sequence.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can allow it in The Incredibles because so much of it is so dense with like subtext.
And it's character building, and it drives home not only how competent Mr. Incredible is, but how competent Elastigirl is, especially as a woman. Are we going into that, or do you have other notes?
I need some reload time. You fire away.
Okay, so I try not to get ultra feminist on the show, and yet whenever we do podcasts and whenever we do reviews of shit, that's when my feminism thing shines through. This movie is the ultimate antithesis for me for what I call toxic feminism. This idea that girls have to be strong and great and brave and courageous, and that's the only thing they can be. They have to be just like men, and things that are so-called girly, raising kids, raising a family, liking makeup and whatever, worrying about your image. These things are inherently devalued because females have to be more male.
That being said, I feel you have some positive opinions regarding Helen Parr.
Yes. So as I said, Elastigirl Helen Parr is the antithesis of toxic femininity, which is kind of on its rise in this era. She is a fucking badass. I would argue that she is one of the most competent characters in the entire film. Right up there with Frozone and Mr. Incredible. And in some cases, she is... she's kind of above them with the ingenuity that she exhibits, and yet at the same time, her first concern is always for her family, always for her kids. That great scene where the plane blows up, and she's like, "Oh my god, I got to figure out how am I gonna get my kids to safety." She uses her strength and her passion and her power for very devalued roles in toxic femininity. And so I really, really love how Helen Parr is played. And I'm not talking about the second film here, but that's a role that I feel is diminished in the second film.
That's for 11 films from now.
Yes.
But stay tuned.
But keep in mind, when we do go into Incredibles 2, please keep that in mind, because Helen Parr is played so great here. And watching her as a female, as somebody who knew a mom and who was a teenage girl who had a relationship with her mom in this time period, it was really, really cool to see.
I'm a fan of I guess, not to be douchey, like script economy, which means let's get the plot moving without as many extraneous elements as we can. And I talked about this in the middle while we were gushing over that fucking bombing of the plane scene.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, one of the cool Easter eggs of Pixar and The Incredibles is when Helen Parr tells her kids to look out as the plane is crashing, she sees the reflection in the water. And it shows that, but only for like a couple frames, and you have to be looking for it.
But what I like, and we have different moments that I believe everything you say regarding toxic femininity and how good a character that she is. Here's a decision, and the decision was originally in an early draft of the script they were going to have a family friend similar to Edna or Frozone fly them to No Man is an Island, and she dies during that. And I think that the decision not to do that serves two purposes. One, keeps the character out of the film. Makes it cleaner. Two, less to animate. Number three, Helen Parr gets to fucking drive that baby.
Yeah, she fucking pilots an entire plane to its crash, and she communicates with the tower as a very competent professional in her field. And so few films can do that without fucking jacking their own cock, saying, "Look at how progressive we are."
I wouldn't... I've never called you, like, a contrarian, and I still don't. But those are really good points, like what you brought up. God, what the hell was I saying? I found out personally myself that I like jokes that are made in animated movies, Pixar and DreamWorks. I dislike it when a joke pauses for laughter as if to say, please laugh. I deserve that joke for making a pun.
And this is not to discredit DreamWorks or the things that they do or the films that they make. It's that DreamWorks frequently does this, where every time they make a joke, there's a little, not even a pause, but like a little stutter. Whenever, with the flow of what's going on, that you're expected to be like, that is a joke. Please react to joke before we move on.
Please see our previous edited review of Finding Nemo, where there are so many fish jokes that they blaze through.
Yep.
And in that regard, the banter between Helen and Bob, which could have been the entire movie, has two very focal points. The first being when they have their big fight at the beginning, and the second being when they finally get back together. Go.
One of my favorite things about Helen and Parr and the way they play off each other is they are played, and you see them fight, you see them disagree, you see them play off each other in a way that kids see their parents fight and disagree and play off each other and still have each other's backs in the very end.
It's so unusual to have to put something in a movie that relates to the youths, because the youths I know the youths have this I recognize that, but to youths, like, everybody has a parent, and like youths are not usually the demographic that get reference humor. They just want action.
And the youths, the kids, which really that's what Pixar movies are made for. You never get the idea that that's all they were made for. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, this is probably the most adult of the Pixar films.
Definitely.
It deals with very, very adult issues. It deals with marriage and how do we raise kids, how do we come together. Yet at the same time, kids deal with those same issues. You know, my parents are fighting. What do I do about it? My mom thinks my dad is cheating on her. Like, what do I do about it? What do I feel about that? This movie is great at performing, of showing those situations both through a kid lens and an adult lens, and it doesn't drag the movie down, which is amazing.
I am shocked how evenly they edited the family members, and I don't mean like a backstory, because definitely in terms of backstory, Violet gets a little shafted.
Yeah.
Dash gets a little shafted.
Right, but
in terms of the amount that they contribute to the story, very even.
Yeah, they're given the same maybe not the same screen time as their parents, but the same attention, the same weight, the same value of importance as their parents. This is a family of superheroes. Every family contributes some part.
Now, a lot of, and I base this on nothing, a lot of the family dramas, you can talk about a nuclear family. Am I using that right?
Yeah. Yep.
But what I appreciate is two instances of family friends. It's so unusual to have, like, oh, this is just somebody the family knows. It's such a slanted relationship that sometimes people don't want to tackle. And the one that I want to talk about is fucking the best casting choice in all of Pixar. Samuel L. Jackson as fucking Frozone.
And it's so, like, I can't imagine what the directors were thinking when they sat down with Samuel L. Jackson saying, here's what we want to play. Fun fact, that scene in the burning building where he says, I'm thirsty, I just need a drink. If you look at his lips, they are parched, they are chapped, showing he is dehydrated. They didn't have to go that far, but they did.
Pixar, don't go that hard. I mean, continue to go that hard.
Yes.
But, I was waiting for you in that scene to be like, just to talk about how, like, tense a scene it is.
No.
For a throwaway.
No, there's so many subtle things. And in the same way of Finding Nemo, the subtlety of this movie just completely blows you away. And you can be blown away by it because you're blown away by just the text, not just the subtext. Because it's all so good. But yeah, Frozone is fucking hilarious.
Just the fucking idea that these two adult men are fighting crime and, like, being sneaky with wives. They have wives.
Yeah.
Like, part of the appeal of, like, old shows like the Flintstones was the Stone Age combined with, marital problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was family combined with a fantastical element.
Right.
And it's been done throughout history with varying degrees of success. And I feel like they knocked it out of the park.
And I like that, like, Pixar respects kids to know, like, okay, adults go through a midlife crisis. What is that? You don't know, but here's what it looks like.
Here's a cleverly hidden butt-pinching scene. So well done.
It is, yeah, and it's just like, you know, as a kid, you know, as a 12, 13-year-old, you don't even think about stuff like that. And I'm assuming my little cousins who watched this when they were 5 and 7 didn't think about that.
It's so well segmented. I know that Finding Nemo worked in a segmented screenplay. Here, this can be the part of the scene where adults sympathize.
Yeah.
But still, it can be fun looking for kids. And I don't want to say fun for the whole family because that's kind of like a...
Yeah, that's such a stupid moniker, but like this is probably the truest example of a family film I can ever
like
imagine.
A legit family film. Brad Bird voices Edna Mode, a family friend.
That's hilarious.
Brad Bird tried to get people, including Lily Tomlin, who I do not know from anything, to voice Brad Bird, and said, you know what, screw it, I'll voice Edna Mode.
I'll do it.
And we are not going to talk about The Incredibles 2 right now, but holy shit, is she a fantastic character.
Yes, she's fantastic as a side character. Pixar is great at making absolutely amazing, unbelievable side characters.
Absolutely. They are the fucking... It's like
and we run into problems when we give them their own movie.
We'll talk about that later. Edna, it really brings full circle that adults, believe it or not, can have friends later in life. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yes.
You can do it. They can be funny.
And they're often influenced by any life you had before, like the life you're currently leading. Like, both of them knew Edna because she designed their suits.
We can acknowledge that they had lives before kids a la Monster University without having an entire movie.
We should get to your notes.
Okay.
Because we're already at 22 minutes.
No, this is a long one. I love this movie. Edna brings up a interesting motif, is that when she leads Bob into her living room, the door is carved into a giant stone mural. What do I call it? I'm like, babe, what is that?
Well, I mean, it's like it's a relief is what it is. But why are we bringing this up?
Because of the Greek theming in this.
Why?
Well, Edna's wall.
Why do we have to equate superheroes to Greek heroes?
Because it's an interesting side theming that.
I mean, like I used to design for gods, and you cut to a statue who's clearly wearing a waterfall chiton.
But the Greeks had an interesting, I don't want to say superhero culture.
Well, they had like heroes were a definite form of their culture, and they were ingrained in that as much as superheroes appear to be ingrained in this culture.
But
so I get it, but I don't know why you need to equate it to real life Greek.
Maybe not a reference, but like is motif the right word? Because you have a name for this thing on her wall. It's called the Battle of the Centaurs.
Well, and I don't know that that's the thing, which is why I was trying to avoid you talking about this.
Okay, maybe we don't know what we're talking about, but like in one of the next shots, you see this Greek warrior, and you just like, oh, that looks really good.
Yeah, with a chiton waterfall, and I can appreciate the motif without needing to dram it in the head. It's a neat little nod. In the same way that the whole movie is a nod to the comic era.
Everything's a nod, but that's just icing on this really good cake.
Yeah.
Fun fact, in our next section, this doesn't matter to 70% of the population. Syndrome is voiced by Jason Lee, who you may most famously know as the main character from the short-lived NBC sitcom My Name is Earl. She did a whoosh visual for you at home. They cast him really good.
Yeah. I mean, Syndrome is really well cast, but I can say that about every single character in this movie.
I hate that it's easy to say what I'm about to say so early in our marathon, but Syndrome is one of the better Pixar villains. Yeah. Well,
and when you said that, I pointed out that Pixar movies don't have a lot of villains. You have Randall, you have Prospector Pete, and I think so far that's it.
You have Hopper, maybe. But yeah, it's so controlled.
Yeah.
And Pixar villains are less of the reason this thing happened as
Yeah.
a reason for kids to go, you're the bad guy.
Yeah, you're a piece of shit. You're mean and I hate you. But they're never, like, Hopper does not create rain. Like, Hopper does not create their food shortage. He exacerbates it.
He's certainly a dick.
Yeah, and he's certainly an asshole. But in the same way, like, Sid is not a villain. He's a twisted kid, and who's you really kind of appreciate as more of a victim of circumstance. In the same way, Prospector Pete.
But definitely, would you argue that Syndrome is the first pointed antagonist? Go ahead.
And I would argue that Syndrome is a villain because you need a supervillain to fight superheroes. And that is the only reason he is a villain, because this is an homage to the comic era. And that superheroes are constantly fighting this one singular force of evil.
So, walking back just a tiny bit, I mostly agree with you. You're saying that the decision to have a very pointed...
And a very pointed Act 1, 2, and 3 villain. A villain that is present and constant throughout the entire movie. And developed and given character and given an arc and given we see him as a young kid as Buddy and all the way up until his and they spend time on making you understand why he is the way he is. They only do that because it's a superhero movie.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and agree with you because I think there could be other motivations, but yours makes too much sense.
And there's certainly ways you can argue that, and feel free to in the comments. But the way this movie is set up, if you are watching, replace Mr. Incredible with Superman. Even as a kid, even if you know almost nothing about Superman, you look at this superhero going, who is he fighting? He's not fighting the system. He's not fighting the man. He's not fighting this situation that sucks to be a superhero right now because you can't be who you really are. That would make for an engaging movie, but that's not one kids are going to connect to. It's where is... I don't even know Superman's villain's name.
Lex Luthor.
There we go. I was going to say Dr. Doom, and I knew that wasn't right.
Babe, stop talking. Go to your point.
No, that was my point. I just superheroes need a supervillain, and hence Syndrome.
It's a neat point, but like the rest of the movie, it doesn't want a pat on the dick for it.
No, and he's not just the general, oh, I'm evil, therefore that's why I'm doing this. No, you understand Syndrome. You understand where he's coming from. He makes really, really poignant points, and John and I had kind of a hiatus on what was the most powerful point in the movie. For me, it is when everyone's super, no one will be.
Let's move on.
Because that is a amazing fucking line.
Okay, she's hydrating. Let me tell you about this. In The Incredibles, this line has been spread around so much that when I went back to watch this, I was sure it was going to be a primary motif, and the fact that it shows up twice in the entire movie shocked me to death. There's a scene when Syndrome is outlining his plan, monologue style, without the effect of he has the time to monologue, and he says, "You know what? I'm gonna stage a superhero moment. I'm gonna make myself great, but then when I get bored, I'm going to screw it. I'm gonna give everybody superpowers, and I want to get this correct because when everybody is super, no one will be."
Yeah, he has this little laugh track, and then he says, no one will be.
And my wife brings up something I never thought about, and I want to talk about that because I don't know where I stand, because my wife, according to me, has two separate meanings for what is about to happen here.
But before you go on, I want to fully illustrate this line, because I do think it's a great, important line in the movie. When Mr. Incredible is helping out the tiny kid, Buddy, Buddy is so excited that he's an inventor. He's made these rocket boots. He's made these great things that'll help him be super. And Mr. Incredible just kind of like brushes him away, not because he doesn't value Buddy's help. It's because Mr. Incredible truly believes that because Buddy is not super, he can't be of any real use. Cut to later when Dash is in trouble. And Helen is driving him home, and he's like, Dash, everybody's special. It's not just you. I know you have superpowers, and I know you're really good at sports, but everybody's special. It's not just you. And he's like, yeah, it's just a good way of saying nobody is. And so it seems like a throwaway line. It seems like kind of a general motif, but like when you really sit down, even as a kid, and think about that if everybody had access to super strength and flight and elastic ability and super speed and invisibility and force fields, what kind of world would we live in if we gave everybody the technology and the ability to be super? What would superheroes even mean?
That is the first interpretation of 2.
Yes, and the one that I think the movie intended.
For real, I appreciate that. It's the one that I've been holding on to my entire life. Haley has a second variety of this, which... do you want to go and explain it?
Well, I can't remember exactly what I said as we were watching it.
But what I heard was that you made an illusion that when we learn new technology, when we learn fire, electricity, specifically
I see what you're saying.
Energy.
Yeah, and so going back to the great comic book, and then don't quote me on this because I don't read comics, I don't care, I didn't grow up in this time period, but the height of the comic book era was the 1960s and the 1970s, capiche? Yeah. And that is the time of Cold War in the United States, and it's kind of, you can actually prove this. I work with historical objects all the time, and so you realize that whenever new technology is developed and available for the masses, GPS, cell phones, computers, thermal engineering and thermal detection devices, it was used by the military first, because the military doesn't have to be efficient. So therefore, it can develop all this new technology without worry about risk, which is a long thing that I won't go into. But I'm just saying that, like, when this technology... And so imagine if you gave every single person on the planet a nuclear warhead. What would the world look like?
In your brain, I'm not, like, discrediting you, but this second interpretation implies that we would destroy ourselves if we had sudden amazing abilities.
And I don't want to make that argument that, like, oh, humankind is inherently flawed, and oh, if we were given the ability to kill everybody, of course we would kill everybody because we're stupid, awful human beings. No, that's not the argument I want to make. I'm just saying it is a very, very neat idea and an interesting way to take this film to be that, you know, if everybody had access to the same materials, if every single person had access to the things that not just the military does, but that everybody does, what would the world look like? And I think, just given our history and given the Cold War mentality at the time of the comic book era, it was kind of generally accepted that if a nuclear warhead was ever launched, the world would end.
Just a quick throwaway. Thank you, The Incredibles, for not having a Cold War subtext, which would have drowned you in fucking mire.
And I'm drawing subtext probably where there isn't any. I'm just saying, taking that argument and extrapolating it to interesting circumstances is an argument that can be made.
It's super neat that you say that.
Yeah, and I don't think that the movie is going for that at all, but I just think it's an interesting way to take it.
And I think that film, you can talk about different interpretations, including interpretations I haven't thought about in 16 years.
It was a common motif in our high school literature class taught by our great teacher who we both had, just at separate times. One of her prevailing ideas about literature, and I'll have to talk with Milo about this sometime, is that if you ever want to interpret a piece of literature, especially in its time, do not ask the author.
And that leans in with don't meet your heroes, because Incrediboy met his heroes and now he's a fucking dick about it.
And it's not because Mr. Incredible, like, belied all his expectations. It's Incrediboy was wanting him to be so appreciative and treat him as, I'm your biggest fan, therefore I have value. And Mr. Incredible is just like, what? No, go away. I'm my own person. I'm not valued by your opinion of me.
Would you call Syndrome a fairly shallow character?
No, I would not at all.
Interesting, go on.
Because I feel like what he's trying to do and what he's trying to bring to the world is not something a shallow character could do. If he was purely bitter and vindictive, he would kill Mr. Incredible and be done with it. But no, he has to be the hero. He has to be the hero that he knew of in his dreams. He has to create the Mr. Incredible that he did not ever find.
Probably my last point, I think.
I'm sorry. Again, I feel like I'm drawing subtext that isn't there. I've watched this movie a lot. I love this movie a lot, and I think it's interesting to take these separate interpretations.
Honestly, you can game theory as much as you want, as long as you are extremely clear. I'm just spitballing in the jokes. The reason you saw me earlier scribbling nonsense is because when everyone's super, nobody is. The two people that talk about that ideal is Dash and Syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dash
is a kid.
Is an immature character by nature of him being a child, which makes me think that Syndrome also had this very immature vision. If you take the first interpretation, that like I want everybody to super, so that no, you can't lord this over me, you can't be special. It's really petty, and I think that a petty villain in Pixar can work.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And that interpretation, without going into all the subtext that I maybe conjured up out of nothing, that interpretation of Syndrome does totally work.
No, for real. I really appreciate chugging this with you, learning new shit.
Yeah.
And the thing that I learned is that you can have, this is reverse Wreck-It Ralph again. You can have every time you watch it, new unboxing, new cool things.
Yeah. Especially when you haven't seen it in a while.
Oh, for real. It's been a long time. Final thoughts, everybody.
I feel bad that I was trying to make more of this movie than it was. I love this movie for what it is, and I don't want to devalue what it is because I am adding extraneous things. But this movie is really good. As John said, it's my top favorite Pixar film so far. I watched it every day for like 2 weeks.
Oops, sorry. Welcome to the Pixar Mainstays.
Oh, yeah. As we interrupt the final thoughts.
This movie's so fucking good, we forgot to do this. John Ratzenberg plays the Underminer at the very end of the movie.
Right on. And you got to be listening for it to hear that it's him.
It's a little more subtle than Ham or the other ones, but it's there. The A113 is one of my favorites. Holy cow. When there's an anomaly in the base, it's in A1 zone and then level 13. So you need two specific screen grabs.
Yeah, 2 pans. And we never talked about the pans in this movie, just how great the cinematography of this animated film is.
They have unneeded, very gentle pans that don't obstruct the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is damn good. The audience is still out on where the fucking Pizza Planet truck is. So this is so funny to me, is that people have been for literal years trying to find the Pizza Planet truck. And
there's like a little coalition of like little groups that's like, we're gonna find the Pizza Planet truck in Incredibles.
Where the fuck is it? So in an article, they
it's like we're gonna discover the law of gravity or something.
They literally asked director Brad Bird, where the hell is it? And he basically said, dude, I don't know. I was so focused on making The Incredibles. I don't know.
Good for you, Brad Bird.
There's a theory that in the scene during the fight scene, way in the corner, it might be the Pizza Planet truck. It's still open for huge conjecture, and it will be forever because even Brad Bird was like, fuck, I don't know.
I mean, you can kind of see it if you can. I hope you're showing it on screen right now, where there's a little blur of a yellow truck that might be the thing.
Maybe, because we want consistency in our
lives.
We
want it.
I believe that this is, back to my final thoughts, I believe this is this oozes fucking style. This man wanted a 60s music.
And they're so human, but they're so stylized, and it's so good.
It was like, throughout the world, people were screaming, Pixar can do people now! Yeah! And it's fucking fantastic. We both agree it's our favorite of the first 6. But thank you for joining us on 2004's The Incredibles, directed by Brad Bird. I know. Join us in 1 week where we are tackling 2006's Cars.
Oh, Cars
2006's Cars.
Cars is next.
Cars is
Yes, it is.
That's going to be a weird one.